Murder at 1051 Ramsdell Drive. What happened to David Crowley, his wife, and his daughter? If this was truly a double murder-suicide, why did investigators fail to prove David Crowley guilty? Where is the evidence David Crowley killed his wife and daughter? Where is the evidence David Crowley killed himself? Within 24 hours of finding the bodies of David, Camille, and Rania Crowley, the Apple Valley Police Department were treating the incident as a double murder-suicide. Authorities cannot prove David wrote Allahu Akbar in his wife's blood on the living room wall. Authorities cannot prove David wrote I have loved you all with all of my heart on a laptop in the kitchen. Authorities cannot prove David wrote Open the Rise most recent version Submit to Allah Now on a notepad in his office bedroom. Authorities cannot prove the dog trapped inside the house ate David's right hand, both of Camille's hands, and their daughter's right arm, since dog feces tests were never done. Authorities did not know about a bullet that rolled out of a living room carpet until they were notified by the cleaning company 2 days after the bodies were found. That bullet would later be tied to Rania Crowley. Authorities did not see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling or the bullet in the attic above until they questioned David's friend a month after the bodies were found. Authorities did not find a motive to support their accusations against David Crowley. Authorities did not find David's blood on any of the bullets at the crime scene. Authorities do not know when David, Camille, and Rania Crowley died. What we know for sure is that David Crowley has not been proven guilty. A simple truth. It really is this simple. Either you believe David Crowley is innocent or you believe he is guilty. If you believe David Crowley is guilty, you are wrong. If you believe David Crowley is innocent, you are right. It really is that simple. A United States Army veteran is dead. His wife and his 5-year-old daughter are dead. A thorough investigation would only conclude with authorities admitting they lacked evidence to support their accusations. If authorities were to admit the case remains unsolved, they would also have to admit that the public may still be in danger. I am not able to solve this case. My interest is in forcing authorities to admit David Crowley is innocent. The reason they refuse to talk about this case is not because they are confident of David's guilt. They lack confidence in their allegations. Their department wishes to move on, but they are only lying to themselves. They must know the simple truth, and they need to publicly admit this. Their credibility depends on it now. The unspoken truth is that David is innocent until proven guilty. Why are authorities running from this simple truth? How long do they think they can run for? You cannot run from God. You cannot run from your nightmares, and you cannot run from the facts. Why would anyone want to? What could possibly motivate someone to try? If you cannot prove David Crowley guilty, then he remains innocent. It's as simple as that. So the resistance we face is disgusting. If David was guilty, the evidence would be right in our faces. If David was guilty, resistance to our questions would not exist. If David was guilty, facts would be evident. There are no facts to prove David guilty. There are only facts which prove David innocent. Hence the resistance to getting justice for David Crowley and family. Who cares? Do the people who closed this case and decided to not speak about it ever again really care? Do the friends who accused David Crowley of being guilty days after his body was found really care? Perhaps they only care about spreading the accusations of David's guilt instead of researching the facts of this case. They don't seem to care about the facts which prove David innocent. Truth is a simple thing. Justice does not die. Facts prove David is innocent. Even though you may be killed resisting, the act of resistance on a metaphysical level has value. David Crowley completed a revised script of Gray State on June 2, 2013, and asked a select group of people to review the updated version of the story. On October 23, 2013, the rough cut of Gray State: The Rise was finished and ready for review. Exporting the rough cut now, David Crowley wrote on Twitter, "So stoked." On December 9, 2013, Crowley added 6 months working on Gray State: The Rise. It's finally taking its final form, but holy Moses, what a shit ton of work. David, Camille, and Rania Crowley moved into their new home in Apple Valley, Minnesota on December 13, 2013. On December 18th, David posted on Facebook that he had lost a crucial hard drive during the move to 1051 Ramsdell Drive. The only real loss after moving to a new house last weekend was a crucial hard drive for The Rise. I guess the next few weeks will be spent salvaging everything that was lost. The following day, he wrote, "File recovery sucks, but it's better than not having files to recover. This could take a few weeks." By December 27, 2013, the documentary film was getting back on track. Finally getting back on track with The Rise. She's been teaching me patience by making me work for the 660 missing clips that remain and crashing at least 6 times a day. The manuscript for Gray State was about to go through a serious revision on January 15, 2014. Some seclusion writing this weekend, David Crowley wrote on Facebook. For those of you who read the GS script, it's about to get gutted for the necessity of a clear, concise, entertaining, and effective film. For all the chewy details that are going to get cut, well, there's always the novel. 5 days later, on January 20th, the story for Gray State had completely changed. After 2 years of trying to extract the Gray State story, I think I finally may have done it. The story has completely changed, is working beautifully, and the new outline was completed in only the last 3 days. With this new story, it will not be hard to attract funding. The following day, David Crowley explained he had rediscovered the ending to the Gray State story. It's a strange experience finally feeling genuine love for characters I've created. The most painful part of writing the conflict for these people who are precious to me is that I must now torture them, punish them, and drag them through the dirt to reveal their essence of form. Yesterday morning, I rediscovered Gray State's ending, and the final feeling captured was of such gentle sadness I've been stuck in it ever since. On January 22nd, 2014, David was still settling into his new home. Spending today building 2 big fucking new desks to create a man cave mega desk, then relocating all of the Bullet Exchange inventory to my basement. On February 2nd, David explained the plot of the fictional film Gray State. Gray State, a wounded veteran leads the insurgency against a corrupt government after his city is put under martial law. The use of force, David Crowley posted on March 7, 2014, no matter the context, should be a shameful last resort, indicating an utter defeat of intelligent faculty. This is the difference between men and children, and also why our childlike society celebrates violence in its exercise of authority. The very next day, David wrote, "Sean Stone, yeah, that one, apparently wants a role in Gray State." 2 days later, on March 10, 2014, David was happily unsubscribing from liberty and conspiracy feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Too much of the backbiting derision they claim to oppose. See you guys. It's been fun. You'll still like Gray State, though. Then on March 11th, David asked the question, "You know what liberty feels like?" Unsubscribing from hundreds of Liberty or Death Fuck the NWO pages and Twitter accounts. This movie was steadily progressing on March 19th. Today, in place of thousands of post-it notes, David wrote on Facebook, pages of scribbles, and 30 feet of plot points, I have a 118-page script outline hybrid that may be only days away from a solid draft 1. The original Gray State story took 8 months of solid work. This story took less than 2 and is better in every way. On March 22nd, Camille was reading the first draft of the new Gray State script, according to David's post. On May 15, 2014, David spent a very welcome morning laying the groundwork for another 6 films I've been having ideas for. It's nice to finally be free from Gray State. Boy howdy. On May 22nd, David Crowley's dream had finally come true. It just happened. I'm not sure how many details I can divulge at this point, but Gray State will be optioned in the next 2 weeks at a major budget and connected with A-list talent. We are connected with a producer who above all else wants to preserve the film's pro-liberty ideals. This is all we could have hoped for and more. Thank you all for being our strongest selling point. Let's make a movie. On June 30th, posting as the Gray State page on Facebook, David Crowley gave an update on the Gray State movie. The past month I've been meeting with some LA-based producers, crew, and other industry contacts, and together we are building the team that will combine our passions and talent and belief in Gray State to optimize its message and reach of its exposure. This has been a truly exhilarating experience. My attorney and I are reviewing the option contract this week, and once that sucker is signed, this whole Gray State thing is going to finally, irretrievably, and monstrously take off for the stratosphere, and in such a way that the message will be preserved and perhaps even continue in sequels, TV series, and video games. Seriously, talk about taking over the mainstream. This has been my life's work for nearly 4 years, and it is extremely gratifying to be backed by such a raging horde of superfans. Thanks for all your patience, guys. See you at the premiere. September 30th, David Crowley spent some time on Facebook answering questions from his supporters. It seems like there are a lot of questions and expectations about this project. For the next 20 minutes or so, I will answer your questions directly. There are 2 very important posts from David Crowley that were either deleted or have been hidden from public view. One post was made on December 9, 2014, and the other was dated September 30th, 2014. The missing post from September included a question by a supporter as well as an answer by David Crowley posting as Gray State. In this post, David Crowley mentions his plans for rebuilding a trustworthy team. Asked what his biggest holdup was with the fictional movie, Crowley responded, "I'm doing this myself. I say we and team a lot, but when it comes to nuts and bolts work, writing and leveraging the product into securing Hollywood money, it's just me. I hope to change this by reinvigorating the process and rebuilding a trustworthy team." Now, we still do not know who removed or hid this post from the Gray State Facebook page or why. Hopefully this post will reappear one day. Responding to a question about when the documentary Gray State: The Rise was going to be released, David Crowley responded, "The Rise suffered a catastrophic hard loss earlier this year. I am working to get it back together, hopefully for a free online release. You guys deserve a little something. I really have to be careful though, because a mishandled doc release could absolutely sink production on the film or series. I'm treading carefully, making sure that everything works out for the best." September 30th was a very important day as David Crowley had big plans for 2015. Today's post represents the first visible beginnings of the Gray State resurrection. I can't get into too much too soon, but with the right amount of hard work, strategy, and miracle juice, the beginning of 2015 should see some amazing progress. Crowley also wrote about a new revamped website coming soon, and many of his last known conversations involved plans for the future of his projects. Over and over again on September 30th, 2014, David wrote about his vision for the Gray State franchise, a series which could be produced and released way faster than a film, has the potential to subvert the system. How can it not? Sorry guys, but Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, while entertaining, lack a real-world purpose. Gray State will not fail you. How could it? Creating the Gray State franchise was David Crowley's full-time job, and he was doing everything he could to ensure the success of this franchise. It'll either be a great success story, a spectacular, highly visible failure, but either way, I guess we all put in our best shot, right? I guess that could be said about where the country is headed too. The questions kept coming, and David Crowley answered as many questions as possible within those dedicated 20 minutes. Crowley was attempting to reach out directly to his supporters and doubters in order to address the criticism the project received for its multiple delays in production. Starting a Kickstarter campaign for future production costs is more evidence that David Crowley was actively planning for the future in September of 2014. We want to run a Kickstarter, but if we do, it'll be for a very specific purpose. like hiring a behind-the-scenes crew to document production, run live broadcasts, and give constant updates to the fans. I never wanted the fans to fund this. It's like making your kids pay for their own Christmas presents. David was still trying to get big budget funding for Gray State in September of 2014. I believe this shows David was not defeated by his earlier failures in Hollywood, as some have claimed. His words seemed like those of a rejuvenated artist who had a story to tell and who wasn't going to stop until his concept for Gray State became a reality. Hopefully the strength of this project as a whole and what it represents with the people will help me get a big budget without sacrificing my intent. But hey, if I can't, then I will take it back to low budget indie like the 2012 trailer. This too shows David Crowley had a plan B, just in case the big budget dreams came crashing down. New developments have enhanced the project's honesty and dedication to its origins, wrote Crowley. This is going to be brutal. Crowley also reminded people to stay tuned for updates. We will keep the entire production process as wide open as possible. In response to the comment that it's been 3 years since Gray State was first developed, Crowley responded, "No, it's been a lot longer and there are years to go." In a separate comment, Crowley confirmed his long-term plans. The film was ready to go, but it may take forever and then still fail at any point in production. A series might be immediately tangible, and instead of interfering with the film, set it up for success a year or two down the road. Big picture stuff. More evidence. Now he's planning for a series that will lead into a film. More evidence of David Crowley planning for the future. Crowley's most challenging thing about the project was trailblazing this timeline. It's been either a very small team or just me alone working on this thing for years, trying to make it work. I do not just want this movie done so the fans can see it online. I want millions to get blindsided by it in theaters. A black Springfield XD40 handgun, item 1A, was found on the living room floor, several inches from David's left hand, according to Detective Tommy Booth. The presence of blood was found on the grip, item A1-1, the slide, item A1-2, the trigger, item A1-3, and the muzzle, item A1-4 of the gun. Ridge detail blood was found on the magazine, item 1B, and labeled as item 1B-1. 2 cartridges were removed from the magazine and labeled as item 1B1 and item 1B2. Item 1C was a live round found in the chamber of the handgun. So here we have 3 live rounds found in the gun. Hairs and fibers were found on the gun and the magazine, and they were labeled as item 1A-5 and item 1B-2. Okay, now there are several blood mixtures found on the gun, specifically on the trigger, item 1A-3, and the magazine, item 1B-1. DNA results show blood of 2 or more individuals on the trigger, with one of those individuals being David Crowley. The blood did not match Kamel, but Rania could not be excluded as a possible contributor. That's in BCA Reports and Documents, page 310 of 488. David's DNA profile matches the blood on the magazine, which also had a blood mixture of 2 or more people. Kamel and Rania could not be excluded as possible contributors. Detective Brian Bone reported that the crime scene team found a total of 6 empty spent cartridges. The crime scene team also found 3 bullet fragments in the carpet. Bone wrote that due to the lighting in the house and not wanting to disturb any evidence, we suspended a detailed search of the house until the BCA crime scene team finished processing the scene. According to Detective Bone, the BCA CTS processed the scene in detail. After the scene was processed, Bone continued, we were able to move the rug that the bodies were found on. Now this will be the same rug that 3 days later on January 20th, item 53, which is a bullet that'll be tied to Rania, item 53 rolls out of this same carpet. So they didn't find item 53, but they did find a hole in the floor, but not in the ceiling. 2 big misses, huge misses, right in front of their faces. Okay, based on the firearms report completed on May 22nd, 2015, the gun, item 1A, fired 6 cartridge casings and 6 bullets. The cartridge casings are labeled as item 2, 3, 9, 30, 36, and 37. The bullets are labeled as items 42, 43, 44, 45, 53, and 57. Now, they did find an unspent bullet that was recovered. This is item 7, but it was not examined either. Even though it was found where these bodies were, could have had DNA as much as some of the shells did, but nothing. No, we're good. So, a single source DNA profile matching Kamel was found on 3 of the 6 spent bullets. Item 42, item 43, and item 44. This is interesting because autopsy reports state Kamel was shot twice. So how is it that the single source DNA of 3 bullets matched Kamel? Because so much of her head was missing, is it possible she was actually shot 3 times like many people have brought up and keep bringing up? Looking at this, I can understand why they keep bringing it up. It's a big question here. Okay, item 45 is the bullet that was shot into the living room floor, leaving bullet fragments on the hardwood floor, and then it lodged itself into the south wall of the basement. According to Joe Cooksley's report, chemical testings of the area around the hole failed to detect the presence of lead. Holes were observed in both the rug area, Cooksley continued, and the wood floor underneath this rug. Chemical testing of the hole in the wood floor also failed to detect the presence of lead. It's BCA report number 2, page 10 of 11. Now, once the processing of the crime scene was completed, authorities left the house with 4 bullets instead of 6. They returned on 2 separate occasions to recover a bullet that rolls out of the living room carpet, item 53, on January 20th, and a bullet found in the attic, item 57, on February 18th. The bullet known as item 53 also contains a mixture of 2 or more individuals, with the major DNA profile matching Rania. Interestingly, David Timothy Crowley and Kamel Rasul Crowley are excluded from being contributors to the mixture. Based on those results, authorities should have been looking for another DNA profile. Unlike other results, it is not stated that 99% of the general population can be excluded from contributing to this bullet. A second DNA profile was found on this bullet, a bullet that had the major DNA profile matching Rania. Who is the other person? This is another question that members have continually brought up, and they're right to do so. At approximately 1300 hours on 1/20/2015, reported Detective Bone, Detective McKnight was contacted by the company cleaning up the Crowley residence at the request of David's father. The cleanup crew personnel notified Detective McKnight that they had discovered a bullet at the residence. They relayed to Detective McKnight that while picking up the rug from the main living room area, a bullet had come out of the carpet and fallen to the floor. When authorities are notified about a bullet hole in the living room ceiling, they again returned to the Crowley residence on February 18th. Characteristics of the hole, Joe Cooksley wrote in his report, and its surrounding area indicate that a projectile was traveling generally west to east as it entered the ceiling and exited in the attic. It's BCA Lab Report number 2 on page 8. After examining the bullet hole in the ceiling, authorities find another bullet, item 57, in the attic above the living room, near the front door. Blood is not found on this bullet, but the DNA profile does match David Crowley. The DNA profile does not match Kamel and Rania. Authorities appear to have a hard time connecting item 57 to the gun. In an attempt to make a connection, authorities use item 31, which is a bullet fragment. According to the firearms report, item 57 against item 31 showed the presence of matching features. This means that item 1 fired item 31. I'm not sure how that necessarily connects item 57 to the gun. This is one of the most confusing things that I've read in this whole case. Item 1D is listed as a bore patch from item 1. Item 1E is listed as a test-fired specimens from item 1. Latent print results are dated July 31st, 2015. 2 of the 3 latent prints suitable for comparison were found on the gun and the magazine. LP1A-1 is a latent palm print on the gun. According to this report, no known palm prints for David Timothy Crowley were submitted or found in the BCA files for comparison to the palm print on the gun. LP1B-2 is a latent fingerprint found on the magazine. However, this too cannot be tied to David Crowley due to the limited quality and quantity of information in the latent print. No ties. No ties. Very interesting stuff. Is it clear that the gun was removed from the living room floor by the time Joe Cooksley and the crew entered the house? Remember, Joe Cooksley, in his report, he doesn't talk about the gun. So who saw the gun and which way was it facing? Very important. It's very important for me to have the actual quotes and for people to be quoted. So this book will kind of read very text-like, very textbook, I guess we should say. And that's all right, too. That's the whole point of it. The book is not for entertainment. It's not an entertaining topic. The book is for research purposes. It's just to help people who are doing research on David Crowley and the questions surrounding the allegations against him. David Crowley accused of a double murder-suicide, murdering his wife and his child and then killing himself inside of their home, writing Allahu Akbar in his wife's blood, apparently, though there's really no clear way for anyone to tell who actually wrote. We know it was Kamel's blood. The blood on the wall was tested. That's Kamel's blood. There's no doubt about that. The questions are whose hand wrote it and how do police prove that? And it's simply not here. It's not in any of the documents that we have. Not in any of the documents that I have, definitely. So that was another odd thing. And there were more odd things, and there's been a lot of interesting stuff. It's not just about what was tested. It's more interesting to me what was not tested. All of the different things that were not tested. So I go through those, try to label them as items, and really try to take all of the data that we have and put it into one book, one place that people can just begin their research. This is not meant to end anybody's research. This is just meant to be the tip of the iceberg, because that's what this really is. Even with all of the data that we have, all of these documents, there's still obviously a lot more. And the question is, if police have it, it would be mentioned here. We know what they have, and it's nothing. It really is. It's just by the fact it's a process of elimination. That's really it. Because they couldn't find any evidence, not that they looked, but because they couldn't find any evidence that anybody else was involved, they just proved David Crowley is guilty. That is supposed to prove David Crowley is guilty. What did they do to look outside to think that maybe this was a homicide? Maybe these 3 people were all killed. How far did they go with that investigation? Now, they can claim that they kept going on and on for the whole year until the case was closed. They spent about a year working on this case. And they can claim that they were always open to it. But the fact is that the 2nd Apple Valley Police Department press release specifically stated that they were treating this as a murder-suicide. That was January 18th. It's like 10 or 20 minutes before David's autopsy has even started. And the theory is already that David Crowley is guilty of a murder-suicide. Nothing in the house is found that would conclusively show you that David Crowley is guilty. Yet things are left in certain areas, staged in certain places. And those are the roads. Those are the paths that we've been following, definitely. But there is one clear path here. What really happened? And that's the path. That's the big path. That's the narrow path. Side roads will all lead there. And if they don't, well, then we'll have to go back and get back on track. But that is the goal, is to get to the truth.
1, 2, 3, 4. mistake. We must surely be learning. Still my guitar gently weeps.
Alright, and I'm happy to say that we are just about complete with this book. The book is just about done. The Gray Stage, written by Greg Fernandez Jr. This is all about the David Crowley case. I hope that this book will help many researchers, past, present, and future, with their search for the truth here. So as we take a little journey down my search for the truth, it has not changed, has not wavered. It's always been the exact same thing. What proves David Crowley guilty? So we're going to go ahead and read from the final chapter of my book here. Usually you would put something like this at the very start of the book, but I felt the book really needed to begin with the documents, with all of the facts that we know, all of the claims, what the DNA test showed. It had to start with all of that